Have you been hooked by the idea of book clubs lately? Are you wondering how you can integrate book clubs with essential questions, supplementary short stories and podcasts, and everything else you want to do? Then today's episode is for you. Today's Plan My Lesson request comes from a creative teacher trying to blend a lot of wonderful things into her new plan for the year. Here's what she writes. Hi, Betsy. I'm a huge fan and avid listener. As a teacher who is nearing retirement, I found myself in a slump. You've been an inspiration. I have completely changed my curriculum for next year. We are mid-process in curriculum writing. For the first time, all of my classes are completely novel-based using lit circles. I've selected 5 titles for students to choose from each quarter, with plans to supplement like crazy with nonfiction pieces, TED Talks, podcasts, etc. I have created an overarching essential question for each semester to tie all the pieces together. It's a bit overwhelming, but I am super excited to get started. Any ideas you have specific to lit circles would be much appreciated. And if I can figure out a way to intertwine Genius Hour, I would be thrilled. Wow, I love this request so much, and I'm really excited about this plan for the year. Today, we're going to dive into this wonderful creative planning process. We'll start by looking at a big picture structure that can help support all these wonderful puzzle pieces while creating consistency throughout the term. Then dive into a single day in the life lesson planning for all of these different elements. Welcome to the Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast, a podcast for English teachers looking for more creativity, more engagement, more joy. And no more scripted curriculum, lesson planning ruts, or boring book lists. I'm Betsy Potash, and I'm honored you're trusting me to help. You're not alone on this creative journey anymore. So we're going to start here with the big picture. This teacher is going to be combining a lot of key pieces, exciting pieces into the schedule for the year. So before we jump into one single day, I just want to zoom out and take a look at what a week might feel like. When it comes to book clubs, I'd really recommend choosing 2 or 3 days a week for meetings and making other plans for other days. Especially since this teacher is going to have book clubs anchoring the curriculum all year long, I think that book club meetings would get old doing them every single day. So I'd consider something like maybe Monday is going to be your day where you focus on some of your shorter supplementary pieces like TED Talks or performance poems. And maybe on Monday, you're going to do a little kind of mini lesson to kick off the week, something that you're focusing on that week, whether it's like a literary element or something about rhetorical analysis or something about setting or vocabulary or whatever you kind of want to give to the students from you to keep in mind as they're reading and working and talking that week. Then Tuesdays, I'd say have a book club meeting and also some kind of multimedia. Maybe that's a day you do a related mini documentary that you watch in class or you listen to a podcast. Wednesday, students could be working on some kind of ongoing piece. Maybe it's a writing piece and they're going to be drafting or workshopping or peer editing or meeting with you. Maybe it's a project and they're going to be meeting in groups or working solo on their project. That can also be a day where you have a little chance to read in class. Now, that could be choice reading if you're keeping a choice reading program going alongside your main whole class curriculum, or it could be a chance for students to just read a chunk of their book club book in class for maybe 10 or 15 minutes with you there to kind of check in with them. When I'm checking on students when they're reading their choice reading books, and I think it would apply in the same way to a book club book, I scan the room and I sort of see who is really struggling to pay attention to the book. And I go around and maybe for choice reading, I often do a quick check-in with every student, just say, hey, like thumbs up, are you liking your book? You good? Or, hey, I noticed you haven't turned a page in 10 minutes. Like, maybe you don't like this book. Maybe this book isn't for you. For for book club books, that would be a little harder, except if they're very early in the book. You don't necessarily want to switch them out of the book, but if you notice they're unengaged, you could check in with them, sort of see how it's going, see if you can give them a strategy to help them continue in the book or sort of hype it up for them so they feel more excited about it. It's always good to just see your readers read a little bit just to let you know how it's going. Okay, so we've made it through Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thursday, I would say, then again for a book club meeting. So that'll give you 2 book club meetings a week. Of course, you can adapt this. This is just like a general idea. And then on Thursday, I would suggest you do a little bit of Genius Hour prep. So I'm going to give you Friday as a big Genius Hour day. And Thursday is just going to be a chance for like a 10-minute think about what you're doing for your Genius Hour project tomorrow and be sure that you have written down in your planner, like to bring everything you need or to go get whatever you need tonight or to do the piece at home that you need to do so that you can do the school piece tomorrow. It's just kind of like an organizational check-in on Thursday to set students up for success on Friday. And then Friday, of course, is going to be a Genius Hour day. And again, if you're running a side-by-side choice reading program with your book club program, Friday could be a great day for a short first chapter Friday reading. It could be every week, could be every other week. It could even be once a month. If you can fit it in with your Genius Hour program, I think that's a cool add for Friday. So whether you do this exactly like I'm saying or not is not the point. The point is that you kind of have a plan for each day of the week and that the plan not always be a book club meeting. I think you really want to give a consistent routine. You really want to give students time between book club meetings to read like a pretty big chunk so they're not just checking in constantly about the most recent like 10 or 15 pages that they've read. Having this schedule will also give you more of a chance to dive deeper with the whole class into the essential question, to build in some teacher instruction time for whatever ideas you're wanting to get across. Build their choice reading interests if you decide to do a choice reading program alongside the book clubs, which I do think is a good idea. And then, of course, develop their Genius Hour project over the course of the term. Okay, so that's the sort of distant lens when we're zooming out and looking at the week overall. But this, of course, is Plan My Lesson. So we're now going to zoom back in and talk about what one day in this week of book clubs and so much more is going to look like. So we're going to choose Thursday. We could have chosen any day, but I went with Thursday. So you're going to greet your students as usual with every lesson. I suggest you start your day with the agenda up on the board, a quick attendance question as students come in, and then it's going to be time to kick off your very first book club meeting. So we're imagining this is like the first Thursday of the year. Your students are already in their book clubs. You've already had a book tasting and figured out who's going to be in which group, what book is everybody reading. They all have their books. They've read a little bit. This is the first Thursday of the year. So, very first book club meeting. Now, I am going to be quick to say here, there's no one right way to run a book club meeting, but these are some ideas. It depends on their age, their reading level, their comfort with independence, but I do think there are kind of a couple paths you can go with book club meetings. So I'm going to share those now. Because it's the very first book club meeting, you might take a few minutes to just set up a little anchor chart, brainstorm a list of what makes a book club discussion go well, or pass out like your personal guide to a great book club discussion to your students. Some of the things that I would suggest going over or, hoping to see in your anchor chart: be prepared. You want students who have read whatever pages the group has decided on, or like gotten through a chunk, however you decide to do it, and done a little bit of annotating or a couple of notes, or if there's like an activity they're supposed to do with the reading, do it, right? That's the be prepared element. Another thing I think is great for them to consider: avoid tangents. They're going to be in a small group with kids they hopefully like. It would be pretty easy to start talking about lunch or the weekend plan or, the sports activity that they have after school or whatever. So just reminding them that this is like really a chance for them to show that they are responsible, that they're capable, that they can maintain this independent discussion. I always like to talk about keeping an open mind a little bit. I have a favorite quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson that goes, "Consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds." And I put that on my handout for book clubs because I think it's really great for students to think like, okay, you don't have to have one idea and stick with it. You can have one idea and then you can listen to another idea, and your idea can morph and your idea can evolve. And that's a pretty important part of being a human, right? In connection with other humans. If you feel like whatever opinion you first form is the rock you have to stand on forever, then you can never learn and grow and gain something from discussion. So I like to bring that up a little bit. Another idea in your anchor chart might be how important it is to be an active listener and what it means to be an active listener. If somebody is talking about what they noticed in the book last night, like how can you show them that you care or that you value their opinion? Maybe you are making eye contact. Maybe you ask a follow-up question. Maybe you really think about whether you're listening to what they say or just waiting for them to finish so that you can say what you want to say. These are life skills that I think, students can learn in English class, and it makes such a difference for their whole life. And then finally, similarly, just talking a little bit about respecting each other. If someone's sharing their idea, listen, like we just talked about. If someone's sharing an idea and you disagree in a way that's respectful. Like try to be encouraging and not ever belittle or embarrass somebody in your group because you disagree or they made a mistake, they misinterpreted the reading or whatever. So those are some of the key things I like to hit on. Your list may be really different. Your students may come up with all kinds of other things that are really great. That's wonderful. But on your first book club day, maybe just give a few minutes to this type of brainstorm or this type of guide. Like help them think about what it's going to mean to meet independently. They may not really have done something like this before, depending on your department. Okay, so now it's meeting time, but how are you going to get started? Now, I have run really formal literature circles in the past, and at least for older students, like at least if you're in kind of the 9th through 12th zone, I wouldn't necessarily recommend those formal literature circles. And even for mature middle schoolers, I wouldn't give them those roles. Okay, I've done that where you have like the wordsmith and the discussion leader and the text illuminator, and I don't even remember what all my original roles are. But giving them those roles every single time starts to feel like busy work. At least that's how it felt to me. And I felt like it kind of took away from a real conversation about the book. And so instead, I want to propose something different. I wouldn't go so far as to just say like, hey guys, get in your book club meetings and talk about your book. I think that is super risky. There are going to be, 8% of your students that adore reading that could do that. And then there are going to be a lot of others that are going to talk about their book for 2 minutes and then look at you and be like, we're done. And that's not going to feel good. So at least at first, at least until kids get really into books, assuming that they rapidly do, I would give them at least a warm up to help push them in the direction you want to go. If you want to go further, I'd give them sort of a little project or specific kind of guided discussion concept that can suit any book, that can suit any part of any book to help guide them. So let's look first at the idea of a warm-up. A warm-up can focus on anything you want them to dive into. Maybe your warm-up is going to be sort of a look at setting or style. Maybe it's going to be questions they have about characters or plot. Maybe it's going to be a focus on point of view or the literary devices they noticed or the pattern of the hero's journey or whatever it is. Some kind of little activity that they do that helps warm them up and move them into a conversation about that thing. So that can be a great way to kick off book clubs if you trust them to take that warm up and then go with it for 15 minutes once they're done. If you want an even more structured approach without going fully into this idea of formal roles that they report on, you could also provide them with a group activity, right? This is the second option, a group activity that works for any book that hits on your main objectives, whatever they are, and kind of keeps them going through most of the meeting, leaving 5 or 10 minutes at the end, maybe for a free discussion. So this could be something like a silent discussion where everybody in the group writes a question at the top of their paper and then they're passing it around the circle, responding to each other's question. Or it could be something like hexagonal thinking, and you give them all hexagons and you ask them to put key characters and quotes and ideas and themes that they noticed from last night's reading. And then they start connecting them and talking about them and writing about the connections. Or it could be something like reader's theater, where you're asking them to look back at the reading and create a little script and create a performance that they're going to give for the other groups. It could be a one-pager. It could be so many things depending on what your objective is that week, sort of tying back to your essential question or tying back to the mini lesson that you gave on Monday, the thing that you want them to be taking away, no matter what book they're reading. What's important right now, you can design an activity around this. Now, this first meeting should give you a lot of information about your groups, right? You're going to see which groups are getting along well, which groups seem to be reading and thriving, which groups you maybe want to sit in on sometimes to help them get going here at the beginning, or individual students you might want to check in on. You can always start with a more structured approach and then kind of relax into more freedom in your book clubs as the year progresses, especially doing book clubs throughout the year, as this teacher who wrote in for this Plan My Lesson episode is planning to do. Students are going to grow their book club skills, right? So maybe at first you have a very structured approach and then you go to more of a warm-up approach. And as time passes on, you could even have like an optional warm-up and say, but if you just feel ready to really dive in, like go ahead and talk with your group or whatever, right? You can evolve your approach as your students evolve in their ability. Now, at the end of this first meeting, just make sure that students know what chunk of the book they're reading next and when their next meeting is. So in this case, in my generalized plan, students are meeting today, Thursday, and they'll be meeting again the next Tuesday. So they're going to have quite a few nights to read. They together should have determined how many pages at least they need to read by the next time so that they can have a shared conversation. And now you're ready to move into the next part of class this Thursday, which is just going to be maybe 20 minutes. And this is going to be your chance to introduce Genius Hour. And I'm so excited about this. I don't think we get to talk enough about Genius Hour on the podcast, but I absolutely love this program. And I love that this teacher who wrote in wants to incorporate it with book clubs. So first things first, I have created like a short little video, which I originally created for the Lighthouse, but which I have put up on its own page. So if you want, you can visit the full show notes at nowsparkcreativity.com and click the link to grab that video, and you can show it to your students. It's like 2 or 3 minutes, and it sort of just builds excitement and shares that idea of Genius Hour for them. You can talk a little bit about how Genius Hour began. It was called 20 Time at Google, and just why you think it's important for students to have time to pursue their own interests. Why do you want to do Genius Hour? Share this with them. Talk about how excited you are to see what they create and about how valuable you think it is for them to have time to pursue, their own personal genius. In my opinion, Genius Hour lends itself so well to ELA because it's really easy to build in a documentation element. So on this first day, you want to get students brainstorming not only what they'd like to do with their project. So maybe it's learn Chinese, maybe it's build a disc golf course for the community. Maybe it's fundraise for a global warming project initiative at the school, or, whatever it is. But also you want to have them thinking about what platform is going to work best for their documentation. So They're going to be doing this project. They're going to be documenting this project. And they could document it with a blog or a vlog or a kind of Instagram-esque style feed of photos with text captions. They could create a podcast. Any of these platforms will give them a venue to work on ELA skills while they're pursuing their passion through their Genius Hour. Now, in my Genius Hour materials that I created for the Lighthouse, I really put a lot of emphasis on organizing materials. And I would suggest, whether you're using my materials or developing your materials, that you do the same. I think it's pretty important to give students a lot of breakdown for how to organize themselves. If they know they're going to be meeting every single Friday, you can give them a calendar that sort of shows what do they want to accomplish by every Friday? What are they going to do with the class time on Friday? And what are they going to do on the days in between to move their project along? You might have a checklist that's just really breaks down the steps, right? Choose a passion. What's my choice? Decide what my documentation is going to be. Look at the requirements, read through the requirements, work on the project, consider the requirements and break down when you're going to do them. Finish the first one, finish the second one, right? Just like a really clear checklist so that they feel like they're moving through the project as the term goes on. And of course, you can decide, do you want to do like a mini Genius Hour just during the first term? Do you want to do something huge that goes all year? These are questions for you to figure out for your own individual work. I would maybe, the first time you do Genius Hour, I maybe wouldn't do a project that extends through the whole year. I might do like a term-long project to let you learn. And then if you want to launch another one in another term, you can, but with just even more understanding of the arc of the project. And students too, they will grow in their skills for how to do Genius Hour. And they could do more than one, sort of prototyping the process and improving the second time around. Okay, so I think that's going to be a very full class period for you. You're not going to have tons of time here on this Genius Hour because you've already spent a lot of the class period with your book clubs. But this is a good time to maybe just pass out a half-sheet exit ticket and have students share some possible ideas for their Genius Hour project as they walk out the door. Maybe you want to have them list 3 ideas for their project and, their top choice for their platform. And you're going to be following up with them the very next day, right? This is Thursday afternoon. This is the part of the week where they set themselves up for success for Friday. So you can let them know, today was the introduction. Tomorrow, we're really going to get started. So if you need to bring anything, bring it. And also, you can take a look at those exit tickets and figure out who seems really confident, who's got some great ideas, who maybe like left some spaces blank and has no idea how to document the project. Then you right away know, okay, I need to check in with Bob and Juan tomorrow because they're not too sure about their topic or whatever. Okay. That's a wrap. That's the class period. We have introduced our very first book club meeting, introduced Genius Hour. So exciting. Now let's talk about teaching takeaways from today. My first one, my biggest one, is flexibility. Book clubs really require a light on your feet approach, as you may have students in different periods who need more or less structure from you. You may even have different groups in a single period. In fact, you probably will, that need more or less structure from you. So keep in mind, book clubs can run this huge gamut. They can be highly structured with specific activities that take up the whole time during the whole class. You can have these activities that just kind of get students started and give them a springboard, or with a really confident group that's ready for it, you can give them a lot of independence. And I really feel like a lot of things can be this way in class, right? I mean, it just really depends. It depends on the group. It depends on the day. And so feeling like it's okay to tweak what you do in A block versus G block, or, Tuesday versus Friday or whatever is great. I remember I remember this one year where I felt like I was so funny and on it with my students during A block and just scrambling during E block. And they were the exact same classes and they were good kids, but it's just like A block just responded and they laughed at my jokes and they like made the class feel good and tight, and E block just was not as into it and I had to work way harder for everything. And that was just the reality. It did not change that much over the course of the year, right? I knew that A block and E block were going to feel different, even though they were the exact same class. And I had to be ready for that. And I had to make adjustments. And I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. And it's just, it's just part of teaching. So that sense of like, okay, I'm going to adjust. I'm going to tweak these book club meetings as needed can just help with the whole process of implementing book clubs. Another takeaway today is just this concept of Genius Hour. Like I said, I feel like we don't talk about it enough. I was really excited to see this request for a lesson because I love Genius Hour and I wish I saw it happening more. I wish there were more conversations about it happening in the teacher sphere. So I'm excited to be part of one today. But I do think it does take quite a bit of prep and structure to help kids be successful. As much as I love the idea, that we could just be like, now you have an hour every week to work on whatever you want, and kids would just create something epic. Lots of kids need much more hand-holding and steps and calendars and checklists and check-ins than that. And so if you're just hearing about Genius Hour for the first time and you'd like to just get more background, I suggest going back to listen to episode 291, When Genius Hour Works, because that was such a fun interview. It's just a very specific walkthrough of one creative teacher's successful Genius Hour program. And I think you will learn a lot if this is going to be your first time trying Genius Hour. Okay, my friend, thanks so much for joining me today. It was a delight to talk with you about structuring book clubs and Genius Hour, two just such wonderful options for this year in class. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay creative. There's help for when you need print and go creativity for your classroom. There's help when you feel like all you have time to do is dash off comprehension questions, and that's just not the way you want to teach. Did you know I have a curriculum membership for creative ELA teachers? It's like the assistant you've always wished for, the curriculum you need, ready to adapt to your specific classroom. This is my 5th year running the Lighthouse, and I've learned so much from the 2,000 plus teachers who have joined me there, and it just keeps getting better. If you're a secondary ELA teacher looking for more creativity in class without your work bag following you around like a shadow, and you want a creative community that gets what you go through every day, the Lighthouse is waiting for you. This is the program where you get immediate access to curriculum across more than 30 themes, like podcasting, one-pagers, argument, choice reading, book clubs, poetry, and short stories. This is the program where you get a sub-plan library you can lean on anytime you need a day, for any reason. This is the program where you'll find a creative community waiting to cheer your wins and share fresh ideas day after day. This is the program where you'll find on-demand video workshops from leaders across our field, like Penny Kittle and John Spencer. This is the program where I share everything I create. This is the program where we go all in. Are you ready to explore how the Lighthouse can transform your teaching? Make sure you're signed up for my weekly creative teaching emails so you'll get your invitation the next time the doors open.